Hello, I'm Azure and I'm not a furry. So you can understand my apprehension when I was recommended Atlyss, which on the surface appeared to be another indie niche furry gooner game. Dude, what the? Oh my god, what? Dude, this is actually kind of... Okay. But after spending some time with it, it turns out that there's more to it than that. Because underneath all the fur lays a charming action RPG that feels like an homage to the old 2000s era action MMORPGs that I grew up with. The kind of game with simple adventures, doing quests, killing monsters, quick reactive gameplay, and exploring a new world. So anyway, here's my honest take on Atlyss. The game goes for a low poly fantasy aesthetic reminiscent of early 2000s era MMOs like Dragon Nest and Mabinogi. Now, I'm gonna address the elephant in the room. Yes, this is a game with furries, but honestly, the character designs are pretty well done. The races all have their own strong visual identity, the NPCs are distinct, and the character creator has a surprising amount of depth to it. It gives you lots of options to create your own unique character. The story of this game is set in the aftermath of an event called The Shattering that broke the world into disconnected islands. We play as a lost soul, brought back from the dead by Angela Flux. Dude, I'm getting distracted, man. What the? An ancient guardian, and our job is to stabilize the world and deal with the corruption spreading through it. I'd say that's where the story peaks. It's pretty light and bare bones overall, and it seems to serve more as a backdrop than an actual narrative. Big chunks of the lore and story are optional, as you'd have to go out of your way to find and read it, and even then, I wouldn't call it particularly memorable. It's cliché, lacks emotional impact, and the game doesn't really do a good job at presenting it to you. An important thing to note is that the current version of the game only has one overworld area. 2 more are planned for the full release, so keep that in mind. But for now, this is the first impression of the one zone that we have access to. With that said, the world feels pretty small and uninspired. Most of what you'll see is some variation of jungle, ruins, or jungle ruins. The maps are open world but compact and relatively flat, and they don't really do a lot with the space that they have. It's a bit frustrating because the movement in this game is genuinely great, and I think bigger and more vertical maps would make getting around feel incredible. They can also add things just for flavor. Maybe some interesting areas stashed away to provide lore and character to the world. It's a missed opportunity. The main hub is called the Sanctum. It's functional for the most part. We have Angela's Tower for quests and teleporting, a shop for buying and selling, an enchanting hut to improve our gear, and a barracks mainly used as the fighter class hub. It's a very utilitarian design. There's not much there in terms of flavor. Nothing to explore just for the sake of it. No real sense that this is a living place people actually inhabit. It feels more like a lobby than a hub town. That emptiness carries into NPCs too. They're around, but they feel lifeless like props, and when you combine hollow NPCs with small, uninspired maps, the overall feeling is that you're playing in a world that's kind of just there. The music is fine, it's forgettable, it's not offensive, and it does its job as background ambiance. That's all there is to say about it. I don't think any track in particular stood out for me. Alright, here's the main reason you likely bought this game, other than the furry short stacks. Poo Novice. Oh my god. In terms of gameplay, I'd actually compare it to 3D MapleStory, and I mean that as a compliment. I love that game. I'll settle this into 2 categories, movement and combat. Movement is smooth, responsive, and fast. You're either sprinting and dashing across open areas, or working through more vertical platforming sections jumping ledge to ledge. Although, one weak spot is ledge grabbing. You can grab edges and pull yourself up, but the window is pretty tight. You have to hit the edge exactly, miss slightly, and you fall. A bit more leniency and the movement would be near perfect. As a side note, remapping dash to a mouse side button makes a big difference. and it's worth doing early. Combat feels good and is very fast paced. For context, I played the melee fighter class. Combat opens up pretty slowly. Your early kit is pretty limited, but things get a lot more interesting once you hit level 10 and pick up your first specialization. In general, I think the specializations are pretty solid. Each has a pretty cohesive vision of what the class is supposed to be and how it plays. In the early game, pairing is useful because your initial HP pool is pretty low, especially for a melee class. But it tends to fall apart once you're dealing with multiple enemies. But this actually changed once I got the fighter specialization. There's a certain passive that gives you a much bigger parry window, and you're more comfortably able to handle large groups. The bosses in this game are relatively simple. Dude, are they coming from? Oh my god! Ain't no way, man. They have specific skills, and you learn the patterns and dodge accordingly. Unfortunately, parrying doesn't feel as useful for bosses, and it feels like you're encouraged to dodge instead. That's why my earlier tip of remapping the dash button comes pretty useful here. You can kind of cheese bosses though by using hit and run tactics, and just dodge and run away while your cooldowns reset. One thing I found annoying is that you can only have 6 spells keybinded at once. 6. I checked the settings and that appears to be the intended cap and you can't change it. Honestly, it feels horrible. There's a variety of interesting spells, but you're pigeonholed into using only 6. Like, come on. Let us have fun with it. Atlyss runs on a very old school MMORPG loop. Grab quests, kill monsters, collect loot, run dungeons. There's a lot of grinding and repetition. One nagging feeling I had was that this game feels like it was originally designed to be a full MMO and changed direction at some point. Not a criticism exactly, but it's just an observation. This works in that it lacks the bad part of MMOs, such as time gating, microtransactions, arbitrary restrictions, etc. I did jump into a public server briefly, and honestly it felt more like a chat room than an actual MMO, with people standing around the hub area talking rather than running around doing things together. In a game emulating an MMO experience, these games are supposed to feel alive, and Atlyss, especially solo, feels pretty lonely. Dungeons are procedurally generated with different layouts per iteration, which is nice because you're going to be grinding them a lot. They typically involve going around, grabbing keys, fighting bosses at the end. One practical gripe is that there's no world map. You either memorize which area connects to which, or you're reading quest text for hints. Compared to actual MMORPG games, it feels rather bare bones and it's clearly unfinished. But the game is described as a vertical slice on the store page, an accurate description, so I'd tentatively give it a pass for now. I think the class variety is interesting enough to warrant trying different playthroughs on different characters. However, I heard you can change your class through scripting, if you don't want to restart entirely and go through the grind again from scratch. Whether or not I could recommend this game depends on what kind of gamer you are. If you enjoy old school MMORPGs like MapleStory, then you might find something familiar here. If you're not a very patient gamer, or if you're more story focused, then this game might not be for you. If you are a gameplay purist who enjoys fast-paced action, movement, and combat, then you might find some interest in this game because it fits that niche. And of course, if you're a furry, then this game is probably for you as well. I've seen some freaky 18+ private lobbies that might interest you. I'm not into that, but hey, different strokes for different folks. Other than that, there's a detailed character creator you can tinker with to create your own unique character. At 13 Canadian dollars, it's hard to argue with the value for what you get out of the box. Plus, future updates and a full release down the line. It's a pretty easy sell. It's also worth mentioning that this is a solo developer. One guy, and I think he did a pretty solid job, all things considered. That said, the game does have its share of issues. The world feels small and empty, the story is forgettable, NPCs feel lifeless, and the game is bare bones and noticeably unfinished. If you're jumping in expecting a complete, polished experience, you might be disappointed. After all, it's an early access game, advertised as a vertical slice, and it shows. Maybe I'm biased, but this game gives me a lot of nostalgia. The low poly fantasy aesthetic, the grind loop, the quick reactive gameplay, it all scratches a very nostalgic itch for me. Dragon Quest, MapleStory, Mabinogi, these are all games that I used to play as a kid, and Atlyss hit in a way that I didn't expect. Now for the real question, did this game make me a furry? Absolutely not. I'm Azure and I'm not a furry. I'm gonna need you to believe me on that one, please. All in all, I'd rate the game a solid 7.5 out of 10. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe because that helps out the channel immensely. I'm Azure, and as always, it's been a pleasure, and I'll see you all in the next episode. Peace.